Dallas, Texas. The city wakes up to the sound of tires on wet asphalt and coffee brewing in corner diners. But for Amara Johnson, mornings aren't about the city. They're about surviving it. Every day at 5:30 in the morning, she ties her hair back, puts on that faded blue waitress uniform, and tells herself the same thing she's been saying since high school. Smile, even when they don't see you. Amara is 24, a nursing student, a daughter, a dreamer who believes kindness still matters even when the world feels blind to it. She lives with her mother in a small one-bedroom apartment on the south side of Dallas. The walls are thin, the rent is high, and the dreams are bigger than the space they can fit into. Her mother, a retired teacher, spends her mornings in a rocking chair by the window, whispering prayers that her daughter never loses hope. "Baby," she'd say, "you were born with light in your hands. Don't let anyone dim it." But out there, that light is hard to keep burning. At the diner, Amara's day begins before sunrise. The regulars come in one by one, some kind, some cruel. Most don't even look her in the eyes when ordering. "Black coffee," they say, and she smiles. "Sure thing, sir," because that's what she's learned to do. There's one man, middle-aged, always in a suit, who never calls her by name, even though her name tag is right there. "Hey girl," he says, snapping his fingers for service. Every single time. And Amara just nods, because she knows correcting him will only make the day longer. Discrimination isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It's in the way people hand her a tip without touching her hand. It's in how security guards follow her in stores when she's just buying milk. It's in the way classmates at nursing school assume she's there on a scholarship, not hard work. It wears you down piece by piece until you start believing invisibility is safety. But Amara never let bitterness take root. When her shift ends, she goes straight to the community clinic for her training hours, helping elderly patients fill out forms, taking vitals, cleaning up. She doesn't get paid for it, but she says it's where she feels most seen. One of the patients, an old lady named Mrs. Rivers, once held her hand and said, "Child, you've got healing in your soul. Don't let this world take that from you." Amara smiled, but deep down she wondered how much longer she could keep carrying that kind of hope alone. It was late October, one of those Dallas nights where the rain falls so hard you can barely see the streetlights. Amara's shift had just ended. She was exhausted. Wet shoes, sore feet, tips barely enough for gas and groceries. She walked out the back door of the diner, opened her umbrella, and started toward the bus stop. Then she heard it. A scream, followed by a crash. Metal against metal. Her umbrella flew from her hand as she turned toward the highway. In the distance, a car had skidded off the road and slammed into a guardrail. Flames flickered under the hood. A small figure inside was struggling, trapped. Without thinking, Amara ran. Through puddles, through rain so heavy it stung her face, she ran. She could see the silhouette of a child in the passenger seat pounding on the window. She shouted, "Hold on, I'm coming." The heat hit her face as she pulled on the door handle. Locked. She grabbed a rock from the roadside and smashed the glass. Her arm bled from the shards, but she didn't care. She reached in, unbuckled the child, and pulled her out just as smoke started pouring through the vents. They stumbled into the mud. The girl was gasping, her face pale. Amara ripped off her soaked jacket and wrapped it around her. "Stay with me, sweetheart. Stay with me." The girl's breathing was shallow. No pulse. Training kicked in. Amara pressed her hands against the child's chest and started CPR, counting through the tears, through the thunder. 1, 2, 3, 4. Minutes felt like forever. Then a small cough. The girl's eyes fluttered open. Amara held her close, whispering, "You're okay now. You're safe." Then the sirens arrived. Police cars skidded to a stop, lights flashing red and blue. Amara stood up, drenched, trembling, her hands still bloody from the glass. Before she could even speak, 2 officers shouted, "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Guns drawn. She froze. "I was helping her," she said. But they didn't listen. They grabbed her, pushed her to the ground, and cuffed her hands behind her back. Rain poured over her face as she tried to explain. "She's alive. I saved her, please." One officer muttered, "Tell it to the station." And for a moment, under that flashing red and blue, Amara lay on the wet asphalt. The same hands that just saved a life now pressed against the cold concrete. Her heart broke in silence. By the time they realized their mistake, the child's faint voice saying, "She helped me." Amara was already sitting in the back of the patrol car, staring at her reflection in the rain-specked window. No cameras, no applause, no justice. Just another night in a city that didn't see her, until she did something no one else dared to do. She walked home hours later with bruises on her wrists and mud on her uniform. When her mother opened the door, Amara just fell into her arms and whispered, "I saved a little girl tonight, Mama, but I don't know why it still hurts." Her mother held her close and said, "Because, baby, sometimes doing the right thing breaks you first." Amara didn't know who the child was. She didn't know her name, her family, or that the world would soon find out. All she knew was that a little girl got another chance to live. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. For now. The next morning, Dallas woke up to the sound of breaking news. "A 9-year-old girl miraculously survives a fiery car crash," said the anchors. They showed the wreckage, the flashing lights, the chaos. But they never showed her. The cameras had missed the girl in the rain, the hands that pulled a child from fire. Amara watched it all on the tiny TV in her kitchen while her mother stirred oatmeal on the stove. The city was already moving on. No one knew her name. She went to work that day like nothing had happened. The bruises on her wrists ached under her sleeves, but she didn't complain. The regulars came in, ordered their meals, and talked about the crazy accident last night like it was a movie scene. She listened quietly, wiping tables, thinking about the child's face, the faint pulse, the cough, the tiny whisper of life coming back. That was the only image that mattered, but silence can be heavy. When her co-worker, Lisa, noticed the cuts on her arm, she asked what happened. Amara hesitated, then said softly, "Just helped someone last night." Lisa frowned. "You? Girl, you always in something. It was meant as a joke, but it stung." No one could imagine what it really felt like to save someone's child and end up in handcuffs. That night, she went back to the same clinic she volunteered at. The smell of disinfectant, the soft beeping of monitors, the small talk between nurses. It grounded her. She didn't tell anyone what she'd done. She didn't want attention. She just wanted quiet. But inside, something had shifted. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the girl's tiny face, and the question kept echoing in her chest. Did she make it? Is she okay? 3 days later, the answer came from a stranger. A detective named Ray Owens came into the diner during lunch hour. He flashed his badge gently and said, "You were at the accident on Tuesday, right?" The room went silent. Customers looked up from their plates. Amara froze, heart pounding. "Yes, sir," she said. "Is the girl okay?" The detective nodded. "She's alive. She's stable." Relief washed over her like sunlight after a storm. But then he said something that made her stop. "Mr. Monroe would like to meet you." She blinked. "Who?" "Richard Monroe, the girl's father." The name rang a faint bell. Monroe Technologies, one of the biggest companies in Texas. Billionaire, private jets, mansion up north, that kind of name. Amara's hands trembled slightly as she poured coffee for a customer. "He just wants to thank you," the detective said. "No pressure, but he's been trying to find you." That night, Amara told her mother. Her mom smiled softly but warned, "Be careful with rich folks and cameras, baby. They like their heroes clean and quiet." Amara laughed, but she understood. The next morning, she put on her plainest clothes, a simple dress, old sneakers, hair tied back, and took the bus to the address the detective had given her. It was like stepping into another world. The streets got wider. The houses got bigger. The silence grew heavier. When she reached the gates of the Monroe estate, a security guard checked her ID and led her through a long driveway lined with trees and fountains. She felt small, out of place, like her shoes were too loud for this kind of wealth. Richard Monroe waited for her at the door. He was tall, gray-haired, and tired-looking, the kind of man who had everything but still carried the weight of something missing. "Miss Johnson," he said, shaking her hand. "I don't even know how to begin to thank you." She smiled awkwardly. "I'm just glad she's okay." They walked through the mansion. Walls covered in art, the air too clean, the floors shining like glass. Amara caught sight of Evelyn, the little girl she had saved. She was sitting on a couch, her arm in a sling, watching cartoons. When she saw Amara, she smiled shyly and whispered, "Hi." That one word broke something inside Amara. She knelt down and hugged the child, tears welling up before she could stop them. Monroe stood quietly, his eyes wet. "You risked your life for my daughter," he said. "You didn't even know who she was." Amara shook her head. Didn't matter who she was. She was a child. She needed help. For a moment, there was silence between them. A silence that said more than gratitude ever could. Then Monroe asked the question that changed everything. "Can I share your story? People should know what you did." Amara hesitated. Cameras, reporters, attention, it all felt wrong. "I'm not looking for fame," she said gently. "Just trying to finish school. Take care of my mom." He nodded, respecting her quiet dignity. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the world needed to see her. The next day, news headlines began to shift. "Mystery woman who saved billionaire's daughter found." Reporters swarmed the diner. Microphones, cameras, flashes. It was chaos. Amara tried to smile, but it wasn't the kind of attention she wanted. She wasn't ready to be a story. She just wanted peace. Yet, for the first time in her life, people saw her. Her customers treated her differently now, some with admiration, others with envy. "You're famous," Lisa teased, half proud, half jealous. But Amara didn't feel famous. She felt exposed. The whispers followed her everywhere. "Do you think he'll reward her? Maybe she planned it. That girl just got lucky." That night, Amara sat alone in her room, watching the rain trace lines on her window. She thought of Evelyn's smile, the way the child held her hand before she left. That moment was worth more than anything money could buy. She didn't know what Monroe planned next, but she knew her life had already changed. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make you a hero. It just reminds you how human you are. And for Amara, that was enough, for now. In the days that followed, Dallas couldn't stop talking about her. The story was everywhere. News channels, radio shows, online headlines. The waitress who saved a billionaire's daughter. Everyone had an opinion. Some called her brave, others called her lucky. But very few tried to understand what it really meant to her. Amara's phone didn't stop ringing. Journalists wanted interviews. Local politicians wanted a photo. Even her nursing school classmates, people who barely spoken to her before, suddenly started calling her inspiring. She smiled politely, but deep down she felt like a stranger inside her own life. The same people who once ignored her now wanted to be close to her. Fame had found her, but it didn't feel like a blessing. It felt like noise. At the diner, business had doubled. Customers came just to see her. Some handed her cards, others left big tips and said things like, "You're a hero, sweetheart." But there were whispers too. Soft, sharp, and cutting. "You think she did it for the cameras? Watch, she'll get a check out of this. People do crazy things when there's money involved." Lisa, her co-worker, started keeping her distance. She laughed less, spoke less. One afternoon, Amara caught her whispering with another waitress. The laughter stopped when Amara walked in. She didn't say anything. She just kept cleaning tables, pretending not to hear. Pretending was easier. At night, she found herself watching news segments about herself, trying to see what the world saw. The videos showed smiling anchors, slow-motion clips of her hugging Evelyn Monroe, and headlines that made her sound larger than life. But when she looked closer, she saw the same thing she always did. A tired girl with bruised wrists standing awkwardly under bright lights. Her mother tried to protect her from it all. "Baby, let the storm pass," she said. "The world loves a story, but stories fade. You just stay you." Amara nodded, but the weight of being the girl who saved the billionaire's daughter was heavy. Everyone expected something from her now. An interview, a speech, a lesson. No one wanted to hear about the fear or the handcuffs or how she cried all night after it happened. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Richard Monroe couldn't shake her from his mind. He replayed the footage from the accident again and again. The moment his car hit the barrier, the smoke, the child pulled from the wreck. He saw the paramedics lifting Evelyn and the figure of a woman fading into the background, soaked and shivering. He felt guilt, gratitude, and something deeper, shame that someone who'd been treated unfairly by his own city had done what no one else dared. Monroe called Detective Owens again. "I want to do more for her," he said. "Find out what she needs." Owens hesitated. "She doesn't seem the type who wants charity, sir." Monroe sighed. "Then we'll call it justice." Back at the diner, Amara tried to live normally. She still served coffee, still smiled at rude customers, still worked night shifts at the clinic. But something inside her was changing. She wasn't angry exactly, just tired. Tired of being a story when she'd rather be a person. One evening, after closing time, she sat on the diner steps watching cars pass by. The city lights reflected in puddles, and the wind carried the smell of rain again. She thought about that night on the highway. The fire, the little girl's cough, the look in her eyes when she came back to life. That moment had felt pure, honest. But now, it was buried under headlines and cameras. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "This is Richard Monroe. I'd like to see you again if you're willing." She read it 3 times before responding. "Okay." The next morning, she stood once more at the gates of the Monroe mansion. This time, she wasn't nervous. She wasn't even sure why she'd come. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure. When Monroe greeted her, there were no cameras, no microphones, just him, his daughter, and quiet. Evelyn ran up to her and hugged her tightly. "I missed you," she said. They talked for hours. About life, faith, fear, and the strange ways people's paths cross. Monroe listened more than he spoke. He asked about her studies, her mother, her dreams, and when she talked, he saw something rare. Strength without bitterness, grace without pride. Before she left, Monroe said softly, "The world is watching you, Amara. You could use that light to change things." She smiled. "Maybe. But some things don't need to be changed. They just need to be seen." That night, Amara walked home through the quiet streets of Dallas, her shoes splashing through shallow puddles. For the first time in weeks, she felt at peace. The world could talk. Let them. She had done what was right, and that was something no headline could twist. But far away, in the glow of his office, Richard Monroe was making a decision, one that would bring Amara back into the public eye in a way she never expected.